Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Iblis Manifestations podcast. This channel features lengthy off-limits conversations with various different artists and entrepreneurs, predominantly from the underground metal scene. We take deep dives into the topics of life, music, spirituality, and take insight from a variety of thought-provoking perspectives from personalities who you don't often hear from in a mainstream settings. I am your host, Cheyenne, and I was originally born and raised in Iran and currently reside in the UK. I am the frontman and founding member of the black death metal band TRIVAX, who have been active since 2009. The band originally started in the Islamic Republic of Iran, where such type of music is banned as well as a punishable offense. You can check the band's pages for any updates on tour dates as well as new music. I am also a personal trainer and an online fitness coach who specializes in people achieving the best versions of themselves physically and mentally. Having been someone who was once extremely out of shape and overweight, I find it to be my duty to be able to pass on the information and knowledge which I've gained to help others achieve the same transformation. The Iblis Manifestations podcast also features a variety of solo episodes where I discuss personal experiences and anecdotes in a very candid fashion, covering everything from mental health, spirituality, philosophy, and even paranormal experiences. This is the Iblis Manifestations podcast. To support it, be sure to subscribe to the channel and visit the link in the descriptions.
It's great talking to you, Cheyenne, really. And best of luck to your endeavors with this podcast. I think it's a great initiative.
You're my favorite person to talk to for interviews and stuff. So I love what you're espousing out here. I love the knowledge and the perspectives that you're curating through this, and I'm just so honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
As I told you, it was one of the most interesting interviews I've ever had, because we talk a lot more things than just music, and I really appreciated that.
I respect you deeply, and it's an honor to be here.
And friends, remember as always, better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. Enjoy the podcast. Yeah. Right then, gentlemen from WINTERFYLLETH, Chris, Simon, Ross, real pleasure to have all three of you back on Iblis Manifestations. You've all been on the podcast before, but now all together.
A pleasure. Yeah, nice pleasure.
Yeah, how are we all doing? How do you feel about the show earlier?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, what can I say? It's a real pleasure to play this festival. It was awesome. Great stage, great sound. Played some new material, and yeah, I'd say it was successful. I was involved with the show. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
great crew.
It can be quite difficult, you know, when you're coming to do like a one-off festival, just because I don't know, like when you're doing a run of shows, as you'll know from playing your own stuff, you get into the swing of it after like a few days, and like, you know, you're really on it, and like, sometimes when
I do prefer to ask for that.
Yeah, I prefer to do that. And also when you come into something like this, it's not your own equipment, like, so you're using some like amp that the festival's got, which is normally good stuff, but like today, for example, the pedal was the exact same pedal that I have, but the buttons were the other way around. So
that's perfect.
Yeah, so obviously like just something else that you kind of like don't need in that moment.
I think with this kind of thing, there tends to be a little extra anxiety because of stuff like that, but I mean, you can use that to your advantage.
Yeah, it keeps you on your toes, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure, I guess so. I mean, there's so much that just goes into a show alone that, I guess that the unexpected last-minute shit is the last thing that you really want.
When you go for the clean channel and you put the hyper boost on or something like that.
One of my favourite tricks is like going into a guitar solo and hitting on the tuner. Silence it, but you know, like it's for deaf people, they can read the notes.
I never heard that before, but wow. I like it, yeah. So you're switching from the audible version of the solo to sign language, basically.
Yeah, I've done it twice.
100% noise gate. It works, it's effective.
Yeah. So, if you're at home practicing guitar every day, trying real hard, you should be in my position instead of me.
Well, that's really selling it as the newest member of the band, isn't it?
No, you're not as good as me.
Yeah.
Russell, humble as ever.
This is why I wanted all three of you together.
I'm just clowning, you know me.
I think that's what you say though. It's a great festival, and it's an honour to be asked to play those stages, and it obviously, it's not a huge festival. It's quite it's huge in terms of image and profile, but in terms of the scale of the venue and stuff, it's quite not an intimate show, but it's like, what is it, 1,500 or something? Like, it's like a great sized venue, and I think that it sort of brought, you can kind of see like a sort of core of people together who are really into this kind of music, and I don't know, it feels like a nice place to play. Because sometimes when you play those really big halls or something, it can feel, I don't know, like the audience is quite far away from you, and it's like you feel disconnected from just huge swathes of people. And like when you somewhere like that and people are really in your face, it's like.
When we shared the stage at the Jorvik gathering, when we played the Barbican in York, because that's a massive venue, huge. Like I think it's like 3,000 over there.
It was big.
Didn't you have like a Bon Jovi vamp?
They had one of those
the last day when they had Pylon playing, they built one, which was cool, by the way. I obviously made perfect use of that one.
I would have done.
I did as well. The walkway out the middle. I felt like I should, but then I kind of, in my sort of attempts to kind of go down there and like be cool, I realised that there was no monitors between the stage and this very far away kind of. Anyway, so I wandered down there. I was like, oh, I'm glad I can hear this.
As you're on a lead and you're dragging your head off the camera.
It was like that.
Totally cool now.
Yeah, but the reason why I mentioned that is, there's something about the intimacy that I think adds to the experience of the show. Because one thing that I noticed after that one is that I barely sweated when I was on stage, just because of how much free air there was. And it was almost like when I got off stage, it felt like I never played, because I usually sort of related to being covered and drenched in sweat.
Yeah, physically gave everything, but you get a bit more of that in the Black Hearts kind of place.
Exactly. Yeah.
I sometimes struggle with the sound at events like this, because I like the kind of surrounding energy. Like for example, when you're in the rehearsal room and all your amps are facing you, and I don't know, there's that claustrophobic full sound that's kind of
loud,
and it's like, you feel the energy of it, and it makes you play a bit better. Sometimes when you're on big stages, the sound's brilliant, but it's very separate.
It's almost
and so you're very conscious of the fact that like I can hear this bit stood here, but like he sounds like he's all the way over there, and like
it's too perfect.
It's too good.
I mean, it's great, but you do lose a bit of the atmosphere in your on stage, because, and I know that translates differently out front, but you almost feel way too isolated in your monitor mix on a stage of that magnitude. And obviously if you're playing one of festivals like this, you don't really get a chance to get that much of a monitor mix at the start. Unlike on tour, if you're touring with like the same front of house guy and monitor guy, you've got that every night dialed in, and you get much more used to it.
I think what it is that when you're in the rehearsal room, is that you feel the amplifier. So it's not just what's going inside your ears, but it's what you feel with your entire body. And I think that's kind of what really makes the difference there, because when you're on a big stage like that, I've certainly experienced this, maybe not as many times as you guys, of course, but you feel that, I know exactly what you mean by saying that the sound is separate, because it's traveling a different way, and that you're only relying on your ears rather than full body to feel the weight of the sound.
That's totally right. And also, that's kind of why, I think, I'm not supposed to be using them, but I never really gelled with in-ear monitors. I don't know if you ever tried them. But we tried them, and
I never have. They seem too fucking expensive.
It wasn't it wasn't for me at all, because I'm sure because it's. Well, no, I don't use them. Even when you guys were all using them, I was still using my wedge, and it's because it was too alien for me. I didn't like wearing headphones on stage. I mean, I think what you're saying is exactly right. I think that a concert, it's an emotional transaction, and it's just like whatever makes you feel
good, and I like feeling, you know, for want of a better expression, just that rock and roll power.
Sure.
The big cabinet, and I want it to be loud and everything like this. So when I've got my headphones on and the headbanging just doesn't feel right to me, and because, you know, it's better, I'm sure for everyone, you know, everyone has their own ways, but like, you know, if you feel like you know, like the music sounds cool where you're standing, it feels powerful, that gives you that push inside to give it to the people, and then, you know, they're going to enjoy it, give it back, you get that energy transaction going on. If you feel 5 degrees uncomfortable on stage, then that will probably show, even no matter how well you mask it, you know, you are masking something. It's best to, you know, really, if you know what you like, you should have it that way.
You want to feel the power, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It makes it real.
I think to like take it back to the original question about Inferno as a festival, I think one of the weird but nice things about Inferno is you're coming to play in Norway, and you're coming to play in some sort of prestigious festival like Inferno, which is obviously legendary and has been going for a good number of years now. But you're not really coming to play in Norway because it's such a global audience. There's so many people from all around the world that you're coming to perform to, that you're playing to a really kind of international crowd, and so it's quite strange where you're in Norway but you're playing to people from all over the place.
That's true.
It's a funny thing, that, because
I do find it really is a great event.
What's interesting about that, I agree absolutely, the festival has been tremendous.
I met so many cool people today.
Yeah, right?
I met Iblis.
Yeah. That's right, yeah. I saw him outside giving cigarettes to homeless people on the street next door. He was like, do you want one? Do you want one? Do you want one?
Yeah, a real rock star, man. I was, you know.
Yeah, that's like some Phil Lynott shit
it's
right
you,
there.
Man.
Yeah,
it's like, cool. Iblis, wow, you know.
But to Simon's point, what you're saying about it being international, one of the craziest realizations I've had, you know, because if you want to look at Iblis Manifestations in terms of, like, let's say number of streams or downloads and views or subscribers, all of that, it doesn't seem that big compared to a lot of, you know, main podcasts that you would find. But what's weird about it is that almost at this point exclusively, every single show that I go to, or especially festivals, I get approached by people who are like, oh, hey man, big fan of the podcast, I really like that episode you did with so-and-so, or I really like that solo one. And I'm always like, how fucking small is this scene?
It's
everywhere I go, whether it's in Germany or if it's in Norway or random places in the UK, there's always like one person there at least that comes up and says, oh yeah, I listened to the podcast. And this has made me really think a lot about how much of a minority we actually are by interacting with this music and by being
it's weird when you realise that.
Niche interest, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's weird when you realise that, yeah.
And like the age we all are, you know, when we got into it, you couldn't just get into it through streaming or anything like that.
It took some work.
You know, you had to make an effort to get into this music, and you had to really love it. So this must be strange for people getting into this music now, because they will be discovering this kind of thing in a completely different way than the way we all will have done at our venerable old ages that we are.
So how would you say that it was for you guys kind of discovering this and whatnot, and then choosing to play this stuff? Because I know you weren't originally into black metal. That's something that kind of came in a little bit later for you guys, if I understand correctly.
Kind of. I mean, like, I was into it, but like, like for people that maybe knew the history of like Simon and I, you know, we were involved in other genres of metal for a long time before we then started WINTERFYLLETH. And we were reflecting on this today. Like, I think WINTERFYLLETH is 18 years old now.
18 years old now, yeah.
And which feels ridiculous to me, because we started it in my head about 3 weeks ago, you know, at Simon's house, you know, like when we were younger. But now that we're coming on for like being on, you know, almost 20 years old. But then before that, you know, we were playing in bands for a long time before that. Like, I was in a doom band called Atavist, and like we put out like 6 or 7 releases, and like Simon was in several bands. Like, I think the reason why we got signed to Candlelight Records originally was because Simon's old band, the Seventh Cross, were on Candlelight then, and so like he was involved in that kind of other ends of the extreme metal spectrum and stuff like that. And so then we were kind of involved for a long time with that sort of doom metal scene. So through some of the associations I had with people in that scene, it was never obvious to me like at the beginning, but there's obviously this huge crossover between the atmosphere of something like doom metal, the atmosphere of like some of the different ends of black metal. And I think that like as soon as I kind of discovered some of that, and became. I mean, I was aware of it. Obviously, you always know bands like Emperor or whoever in your head.
Sure, everyone's fans.
Yeah,
lots of different.
But what I mean is, like unless your kind of focus switches there. Like for a time, I was like really into the kind of the whole slow music, expressing through like kind of the sort of sonics of all that, and like it being quite a physical experience on stage with people with really loud amps and this whole thing. And then you realise that you find that atmosphere, but in a slightly different way through black metal. You were coming across all these bands, at the time, obviously all the classic stuff, Over and Emperor and Enslaved, and some of the sort of Scandinavian stuff. Sorry, not Scandinavian stuff. Some of the Slavic stuff as well. Like Trudk and bands like this.
That was one of the things that we first kind of connected on. Like just again, like going back to the days of before streaming and stuff like that. You talk to people more about stuff and. We originally first connected, talking about like the early days of bands like Drudka, who been going on a little earlier than we were. And discovering those kind of projects was what kind of really
it was a spark for us,
got me and Chris talking about doing a project.
But it's interesting. I was speaking to Russ like a week or two ago about getting into that kind of music, and like when you come from. Wherever you come from. Sometimes you're from like quite a little place, you're not in a city centre, you're not near to like extreme underground, obscure record stores or whatever. And so like
they weren't there, man. Especially not in England. There was no scene in England when we were. I mean, I'm not the visual member of this festival, but like around the sort of same time, I was into Black Metal young, but in those years. It just wasn't there,
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. If you have alcohol, you need to sit by the library or by
sorry.
the bar. Yeah. Oh,
That's no problem. Sure. I'll pause that and then
you'll get rid of these.
Yeah.
We're doing an interview.
That's okay. That's okay. No, it's the rules. We completely understand.
I can't just like place.
Yeah. But there's an interesting point to go into this that Chris was making about, we all come from quite small towns. Originally, obviously the band's centred around Manchester, but I grew up in Worcester, you grew up in Huddersfield, and you grew up in Frodsham.
I finished it.
Oh, sorry. I'll start again.
No, you can carry on, that's fine.
So it's an interesting kind of point to make, we all come from quite small towns in England. I come from Worcester originally, that's where I grew up. Chris from Huddersfield, Frodsham. And going back like 30 years, when you're first discovering music, there wasn't internet streaming, there was just the whole, not quite the tape trading days, but just after that. You can't just get into this music, you don't just wake up one day and you're into like underground black metal. That's just not the way it works, is it? And anyone that proclaims they did is a liar, quite simply. And you have to discover it, and when you do discover it in the way that we all had to, it does kind of show a real depth of passion for that kind of music, because you've really had to work hard to get into that stuff, and you're not getting into it because it's just some trendy thing to get into, because it wasn't then. It really wasn't trendy at all.
It's almost like you got to go through hoops just to get into the genre and actually just to get to listen to it and enjoy it. So it's like you have to earn the pleasure.
You're a good example, actually, obviously, because you had an even more extreme background of getting into that music than we did, because of your background in Iran, obviously. So
but I think that at the core of it, the desire is the same thing.
Of course it is. Exactly. That's the point I'm trying to make, and
But you couldn't just get it though. You couldn't just go into a record store and like buy the whole discography of some underground band. Like now you can go into like a mainstream music store and they've got Emperor, they've got whatever,
or you just can't stream it. It's just a click away.
Yeah, of course. But then when in those early days you couldn't just go into a record store and buy a record store
and seeing an album cover and going, I connect with that artwork, I connect with that album cover. And I remember going into record stores, I'd travel up to Birmingham to go record shopping, so it was the closest big place where there were decent record stores, and going in there, and I remember picking up hopefully you won't get cancelled for this, but picking up Philosopher by Burzum at like 16 or 17 and just seeing the album cover.
And it's a black metal blueprint.
It is, of course it is. Yeah, of course it is.
And
maybe it was a purer way of discovering music, but things evolve and change. And
I mean, you can't criticise anyone in this day and age for things being different. I mean, of course, I'm a nostalgic person, but yeah, obviously I've not been in this business since the beginning. I've been in this for about 4 years, but I went to black metal pretty young, and I totally agree with the point. So there was something special about it for me. It appealed to me to make these efforts, and I guess the music itself appeals to my nature. This kind of how it was in high school. If you listen to Iron Maiden, I was listening to Pantera. If you listen to Pantera, I was listening to Slayer. So you're listening to Slayer, I'm listening to Morbid Angel, Nile. So and then I met a guy, and I was aware of what I thought to be black metal, because it's early 2000s, so like Cradle of Filth and stuff is around. And I thought, oh, that's not for me. No disrespect to Cradle of Filth, but at that time that was my reaction to it. When you get into a band like Slayer or whatever, I was more that kind of angle. And then God man, I met this guy called Dave, and I started my first black metal band in 2003 called Iblis with this guy Dave and Matt, who plays bass in my band Necronautical now. So he did like a ripped copy of downloaded so actually kind of Dissection, Stormlight's Pain. Okay. So I had this, and then in the Night Side Eclipse, I listened to it. Might as well have been fucking magic to me, man. And then I was super fortunate because he took, we're going to go to a show. I saw the Dissection show. My first experience of black metal, technically was Watain.
Was that the one in Bradford in 2004?
I was there, yeah.
I'm so fucking jealous, man.
I've
met so many people who went to see the Dissection.
That was one of my biggest regrets. I was supposed to go to the Birmingham day of the Watain Dissection show.
They played Eddie's, didn't they?
They played Edward Nunn.
So imagine this, okay? So I'm 15
right. It's burned down now, doesn't it?
I'm 15 years old, 16 years old, and I go to this venue, and I don't even know what to expect because there's no. The incense either, but you know what I'm talking about. There's not how anyone talks about this. I don't know what to expect. I walk in, big iron, burning inverted crosses, and the place fucking stinks of blood and shit, obviously because of Watain. And it's brutal. There's blood everywhere, and when Watain is playing, Set Titan, who was in Dissection at the time, I didn't even know it was him because I hadn't even seen Dissection yet or whatever. But I stood in the front row. There's not that many people there. Maybe
they did Devil's Blood, didn't they?
And Set Tyson takes a big knife out of his boot whilst Watain is playing, and he's cutting his arm. And I was just like, this is so extreme. Like this was like really palpable, and it was very, very satanic and dark. And I was just like, it blew my mind. I'm not even saying like this is what I'm up for, but it was just like it was such a visceral experience. And then like. You go through something like that when you're new to a genre, and it's just like, well, Slayer just isn't going to cut it anymore,
No pun intended.
I didn't even catch it. So from this point, I'm fanatic, and it appeals to my religious nature that I said before. You like this, but I like this. So, we went to WAC in 2006 after this for the last ever Emperor show at that time. and
you should be grateful. You've gotten to play with them.
I am extremely grateful. Yeah, and but it was just special, to be young and to be taking these troubles to go abroad to watch a band, and we wait at the front row all day from 11 a.m. Day to we have to be the front row for Emperor. It's a long, hot day, man. Because they played like midnight, so all day. It's just devotion. And then, like these guys are saying, it's hard to come by this stuff. You can't. You used to be able to get the merch maybe on eBay, and like it'd be secondhand, like arrive, like all grey, and like we'd like be like psyched about it if it had like fag burns, like cigarette burns is an English way of saying cigarette. in the t-shirt, like, oh yeah, that's really like, oh, it's really black metal, it's so gross. We got excited about that, but you just couldn't buy this. So we went to WAC and with an extra suitcase just to buy merch and CDs. They come back with like, took money. And
it comes down to that devotion, though.
Yeah, you just couldn't find it, but you knew at Wacken in Germany they had this metal market.
I do relate to that.
I also saw Morbid Angel for the first time, so yeah, great days.
That's when he had the latex pentagram thing. They still sounded great though.
I was psyched because of great death metal and a lot like Motley Crue.
And that's also when they had Eric Rutan play.
Yeah. So again, what a blessing to see Morbid Angel the first time with that lineup of Morbid Angel. Yeah. So yeah, for sure I'm nostalgic about it, and but yeah, I mean, it's not that people don't make these efforts now. I mean, like to go to Norway and visit Inferno Festival is an effort, but But yeah, it took some work. It took someone to know to introduce you to it, and then even you spoke to another heavy metal fan about it. They don't understand, and it's kind of nice. It felt like it was for you. It was personal,
and that was the whole point I was trying to make about Inferno Festival as a gathering of people from all over the world that have had to make a devotion to come here to this one place or to see what's going on, and they're not everyone that's at this festival is devoted to this type of music, you would imagine.
Absolutely.
I would imagine, maybe not. But,
no, but you are, and I think there's that shared common thread between all of those, like you said, is that you have to earn being a fan of this music. You have to earn listening to it. You have to earn being able to, so Slayers to Life, you need to listen to Destruction. And Destruction's to Life, you need to listen to Blasphemy, and you need to kind of like earn your spot in that. And I think that's ultimately what's at the core of it, whether you're from Iran or whether you're from the UK or whether you're from Norway. I think there's that common thread that we all share, and I think we should cherish that because, like I said earlier, it's a lot smaller than we think it is.
It just felt top shelf, it felt XXX. Naughty, Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. It feels contraband. It felt dangerous. I was excited about it, man.
It's also one of those things that people get upset about as well within black metal. People get upset that it's elitist and gatekeepery. But that's what's special about the genre. You really have to work to get it to really be devoted.
It's not for everyone. That's what I'm
It's not for everyone. I've never seen that as a bad thing.
I'm gonna give you a tough question then, aligned with that. I agree that elitism can actually be a healthy thing. To me, elitism is actually some form of a capitalism, because it forces you to basically be better, or in the case of black metal, be more true. Okay? In that line, in my opinion, that's a net positive for sure. But how would you respond to someone who uses that elitism against your band?
Well, it happens. It happens, and you've just got to.
It's difficult though, because with our band, we know what Winterfylleth is. We're not a kind of corpse paint and bullet belts and spikes kind of band. And I think when we were starting doing this band, particularly, our vibe, I suppose, was that we wanted it to be organic and kind of, I guess, from the mountains and hills rather than from the caverns and the grave, if you like. And the point of us making this music was to try and do something that was kind of organic and atmospheric and evocative and had a slightly different atmosphere and also came from England. And so at the time it didn't really exist at all when we were doing that. And so if someone doesn't get it, I understand it, because I suppose we consciously didn't put corpse paint on and try and be a kind of black and white black metal band. As you've heard already, we all love the classic black metal albums. We were inspired by all those artists and the things that they were doing. But when we were formulating the idea for what became Winterfylleth, it was I don't just want to try and do that again, because that belongs to those guys. It belongs to the Norwegian scene, and that mystery and mysticism that they kind of garnered, it was theirs, and it feels legitimate when they do it, but it feels disingenuous for me to do it. And so I was like, well, we just have to try and take this down a different path then. We've got to be fairly no image, if I'm honest, we're more about the projections, the visuals, the kind of the lighting and stuff, and the atmosphere of the music. And so, some purist people who only like the old stuff, or want it to be a specific way, then they're not going to like it. But
and that's fine.
I don't think it's not black metal just because of that.
But also, I'd like to make a little point here. If you think that elitism is qualifying music by putting it in a box, and let's be honest, your box, then you're a loser. There's no growth from that. Absolutely, even if you go back to these romantic.
Do you mean from the perspective of an artist or a listener?
It doesn't matter, because artists are listeners or whatever. But I really hate this notion of black metal, musically or sonically or even visually, should be this. That's not the point. It's something deeper than that I think is understood. And if you want to put things in a box like that, then That's bullshit. That's actually everything the genre was against. Everything that you romanticized was against this. You want to talk about, let's say, the Norwegian Big Four, something like Mayhem, Burzum, Enter the Dark Throne. Like those bands sound the same in the beginning. Was that what it was?
They never did.
Not at all.
And the bands that came before them as well.
Yes, and so it's really not like that. And elites. When I talk about this, it's not like.
I guess it's more about
if you go back to the four bands, I consider them to be a musical elite to write those albums at that age. And that's what I mean.
What it comes down to ultimately, the conversation here, I think, all boils down to the fact, and we talk about this a lot, and it's brought up in most of the interviews that we do if this conversation comes around. For me, the most important thing about a band, whether it's black metal or not, is if it's authentic, then I can connect with it. If I get a sense that a band has an authentic intent behind what they're doing, then I can fully appreciate what they're doing, no matter the genre, but particularly in black metal. If the band is completely authentic, then
But you could probably say that that's probably the reason why WINTERFYLLETH has been successful, is because you have taken your own path with it and you have been authentic in the way which you've gone about creating it.
That's also like how you present yourself. Like really has very little to do with authenticity. In fact, it's if these guys were, I was by cosplaying in my old bands, but I believe I did it with a degree of authenticity. So,
and sometimes as well, you gotta try just to get to know yourself.
But what I'm going to say is that, like, if these guys decided to do that, like, to be a part of something, then that is very disingenuous. And it's not about like what you do, but I mean,
believe me,
but when you see a band,
it was not the cool thing to do. It was not. We were pariahs for a long time.
You very much were.
Yeah, pariahs.
But yeah, it's, if you're doing something you don't want to do to try and fit in, that is the least black metal thing I ever heard of.
I couldn't agree more with that.
That's the bottom line.
For sure.
So whichever way you go, fine, but mean it.
So with this sort of dynamic that you guys have got now, of course, you've just done the newest record, you're currently working on it,
It's finished.
Okay, there we go. We heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. How was the experience doing that with Russ in the band?
It was great. Yeah, I think what's been a constant in the band throughout the years is myself and Nick being this kind of like writing partnership, and we've had a few lead guitarists over the years, but it was like Dan previously was great, and but with Russ coming in now, and Russ being a really sort of focused writing member in his other projects, sometimes it's good to have a different perspective, because one of the kind of the fun and sort of semi-difficult things we had about Russ joining the band was we played very differently. And so I have this quite sort of smooth, sort of sweeping playing style, where Russ is much more like a much more technical player, in the sense that he a lot of the necro stuff is jumping across strings, very fast, kind of like minute details and stuff. Whereas I quite like writing these sort of like sweeping, kind of like open chords and stuff that have this kind of different atmosphere. And what's been nice for us, I think, is to sort of combine those two things and find a way through our different playing styles to kind of come up with something that we think is new and interesting, and I think it's pushed Russ into some new areas, and I think it's pushed us into some new areas. Obviously it's not us and them where we are one now, but what I mean is, from the perspective of what it was and now what it is, I think it's been great for us, and it's been nice now. Obviously Mark's now writing as well in the band too, the keyboard player. He contributes a lot, and
also a great musician.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got lots of great musicians in the band. And I think when you first have a blank sheet of paper when you're making an album, you're like, what on earth does this album sound like? And you write a few riffs, and then it starts coming together. I very much feel like we didn't have any moments where it was like, no one's got anything.
Well, we weren't short of ideas. It was
there was a lot of stuff, and everyone was kind of bouncing off each other, and if someone didn't have an idea, someone else had an idea, or whatever. It was good.
I find that the hardest part about making an album is actually
perfecting it.
Oh, look!
Join in, man.
Hello. We've just got Rick joining us.
But jump in the interview.
Ladies and gentlemen, a wild Nick has now appeared.
on his way to the toilet from the bar.
We've officially now had all members of Winterfylleth appear on Iblis Manifestations. That's a first for any band. So I just wanted to congratulate you all and also say thank you.
We appreciate it.
It was easy.
Yeah, I don't think it was too hard. Yeah, Mark is not currently here, but he was on a previous episode. A good one if you guys haven't checked it out. So we were talking about the new record.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Nick speak for himself now. But I was saying that obviously with Russ coming into the dynamic, then there'd always been this core of me and Nick writing everything. I'm not writing everything, but like being the sort of genesis of the ideas and kind of and the main bulk of stuff kind of coming from he and I, and then everyone else would work on it. But now that Russ is in the band, he's a big writing member in his own band and stuff, and we have, like as I said, we have very different playing styles. It was nice just to have some new ideas come into the mix.
I was sad. I mean, when Chris first approached me about joining Winterfylleth, which was in the pandemic in 2020,
wasn't it? Yeah.
So we started talking about that, and I was like, okay, we'll talk about that. So I never really obviously it's a great band to be with. I was happy about it. We're already friends, so it made a lot of sense anyway. With Dan departing,
we'd already toured.
Well, we
in 2017, right?
Correct, yeah. You guys took us out, and we had some other experiences, studio time and stuff. We were friends anyway, so it made sense. But I started to say to Chris, thought about it. Well, I'm not really because they'd done the Howling of Erdem album. I was like, I'm not really that kind of player, so that was one thing I said. I'm not really as good as Dan Camp was, and that sort of folky style. It's not really me. But also, I think I said I hope you're receptive to writing collaboratively, because I want to be a part of things creatively. It's my primary motivation as a musician is to make music, but also it's just interesting to me because I've always kind of been captain of my own ship largely. So this is definitely everybody's contributing, but somebody's got to sort of have their hands on the reins, and I'd say that's Chris. We've got to do this with that. But that's great. It was refreshing for me to work this way. Not coming in with a finished song, but hey, I've kind of got an idea. Let's develop it, and it was very collaborative, and I really enjoyed it. And sometimes, the last track in your album, which was a lot of my ideas. I think it was probably hard for you at first because you wanted to do it, but you were also this is a bit different. It would have been a Necronautical song actually, but I was let's see. I was kind of let's see what these guys do with this material, and it took a bit of back and forth, but it was a fun process, and this is going to be the last track on the next record, and I think it's come out really great. But it's kind of how it works. I'd come in with something. Well, on the other side, some of the stuff I come up with was very textbook Winterfylleth, which was funny, because I'd already been playing live with the guys, so I know the style. But yeah, it was just fun in many ways, okay, so what are you going to do with this? And then it's just fun to see how that develops, once Nick and Chris, had their hands on it, and get Simon, adding his flair to the drums in his studio and his style. It's fun to have an idea and be rather than with my own project where I know how it's going to go down. It was kind of let's see where this goes. It was really fun for me, and I really enjoyed working on the record.
Collaboration is really the main word, I think, when it comes to the new material, because, like Chris said, we were often just the nucleus and the genesis of a lot of it, and it's interesting to have not just Russ, but you also have Mark as well, who writes music. So, particularly the title track on the new album, I think, is possibly the most collaborative Winterfylleth song that's ever been. And I knew how I wanted the song to end. I didn't have a riff in my head, but I was after this section, it needs to go to do something like this. And it was just Russ just sat there and just went, oh, bang, there you go, that's it. And right. It's kind of so it was really easy, and it came together beautifully, and I think we were all really happy with the demo of that song.
And so the collaboration is to such an extent that I'm playing lead guitar in the band, right? But Nick's writing some lead parts, Mark's writing some lead parts, I'm coming up with ideas for the drums. It's very much I would say it's collaborative but never compromise. Nobody's compromising, everyone's got to be happy.
Well, we work in a way that
but it was great.
Whatever sounds best, that sounds silly. that sounds obvious, but you know, and when we record in a way that whoever can play the part best does it. There's no kind of ego in the studio. It's like,
there's no
let's just make it sound great now.
Well, I'm the lead guitar player, so I play all the lead bits. It's like, well, this bit sounds like this, and it's like, right, okay, pass the guitar and.
It really is that vibe. Really okay.
It was good, and I think that's the best way to do it. Because sometimes, like, you'll know this probably from your own material, you've not in the way that people do things now. You've not always played these songs together. Sure. Before you're recording them live, so the studio. Sorry, so you've not played them live. You've not really rehearsed them, maybe in a traditional sense. You've written them, in the studio, or you've written them on a kind of like your recording setups at home, where you've demoed them and things like that. So sometimes you're like, I wrote that bit, so I could probably play it a bit better or whatever, and then, like, everyone gets their kind of flair on it, and it's like, look, we've only got 12 days in the studio, like, we just need to, like, this just needs to be realised, like, let's just do that, whoever's got the chops right now.
Actually, it's funny you should say that, just to quickly mention Chance material, because probably people don't know this, but actually the last TRIVAX album, I engineered your guitars, and I recorded your guitars and Sully's bass, and this guy, Cheyenne, he did every song one front to back take. I never saw anything like it, and you didn't really need any edits. Like, you know your songs. You had them in there for a long time and here for a long time. I felt, and I really loved that you wanted to do it that way. You like, and these songs like 10 minutes long. You're just like, I had a lot of respect for it, man, because you're a great player, and
thanks.
You're not going to say that about yourself on your podcast, but like that's how it was when we recorded the TRIVAX album. Cheyenne, front to back, 10-minute song, like really not many fuck-ups at all. Really awesome to record you.
I appreciate it, and honestly, that I'll never forget that weekend. That was like
a great weekend.
That was like what 3, 4, maybe 5 days we had. May 2019 when we recorded "Hello, All Burns Out."
And a long while ago.
It is a long fucking while ago. You would hope that I've written some new stuff since then. But
too busy chatting to people on this.
Too busy editing videos with people.
Yeah, that's it. But it was great times and great memories. And credit to Russ. There was like some parts on there that were actually your idea. So on Alpha Predator, where you've got the panning that goes left and right, it's not actually chopped in. That's played, and that was your idea.
Yeah, well,
that's one of the good things.
But this is what it says. It's not necessarily like that I'm a control freak, but like I said to Chris when I first spoke to him, look, I have ideas, and I don't need them to be adhered to, but I need them to be expressed.
He fucking hated the Baglama. Like, honestly.
I just put the microphone like near your balls to fucking get the sound over that thing. Let me just get a microphone like right here, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good job. That took off in the end, but when I was trying
to record... Is that the bit at the beginning of Azrael? Or
yeah. That's it. Because he hadn't heard what was inside my head and how I wanted it to turn out. It didn't make sense. So it was just me playing this annoyingly fucking loud earworm. Yeah, but I guess people have heard it now, and it did work out in the end. But I think that spirit of collaboration that you're talking about, that's everything. It makes it more spontaneous. And I guess in the case of you guys, 8 albums in now?
Yeah, this is going to be the 8th.
Yeah.
Well, up for debate. I say it's 7, but it's
okay.
Does.
What's the origin of that debate? What acoustic album?
No. We made an album, in inverted commas, according to Nick, in 2016, which is called The Dark Hereafter.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So The Dark Hereafter, it was a bit of a complicated one, because at the time, like, Candlelight Records that we're on was owned by Plastic Head Distribution, and it got sold to Spine Farm.
Right,
And so we released an album called The Divination of Antiquity before that happened. And then we were in this real no man's land of the fact that they were changing the ownership of the company over between the previous owner and the new owner. And we were like lost in the middle of it. We were trying to put the Dark Hereafter out as an EP with 3 tracks that were like bonus tracks from the last album.
Yeah, we had like two full songs, wasn't it?
3 songs. 3 songs. Ensign's, Dark Hereafter, and Briar's Path.
Oh, right, yeah, Price Path will come out as an extra track,
Anyway, so we had these spare tracks, we thought, right, we're going to put this out as an EP. Because then the label took so long, we then went back into the studio and recorded this track Green Cathedral that we played today, and then a cover of all the song I Troll Skog Fair Vilt, but with English vocals, rather than Old Danish or whatever it is. And so that made it like 42 minutes. And so we put it out as an album just because it was like so long after the last one. Mm-hmm. But the argument is...
Yeah, I mean, because...
It wasn't written as an album, I guess.
It wasn't written as an album, no.
Because that was my thought process behind it, because it wasn't attacked as that. We had the tracks from the previous record, and we were like, right, we're going to do like an EP of sorts, so it gives us license to do a cover version, and then we were like, we want to also write a song that's possibly out of the box in terms of what would usually come into a Winterfylleth albums, which is where Green Cathedral comes from. And I think that's the first time ever really where we decided to actually write a song to a certain kind of template. Sure. It was like, we want to do a slow brooding kind of track here, and let's see what happens, because otherwise it's like we never sit down and say that, because what comes out comes out. Yeah. But that was the first and only time, and I think we had a bit of license to do it because there was the mentality of an EP in my mind.
So to everyone who's listening and watching this right now, let us know in the comments if you think The Dark Hereafter is an album or something else. Right, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Chris, thank you so much for coming to the podcast.
Cheers, man.
Nick, pleasure.
Great to see you,
Simon, Russ, my man, we already trained in the morning, so you guys need to make up for that next time. All right, really looking forward to the album coming out, and excited to see what's next for Winterfylleth. And thank you all for listening to Iblis Manifestations. We'll see you on the next episode.